Hello everyone. Today we are going to present to you our paper by Professor Ali Gobr and myself, Mennat-Allah, named The Critical Analysis of Design Studio, Adopting a Narrative Methodology as a Means to Fragmenting Knowledge Within Architectural Pedagogy. The aim of the paper is to critically analyze a pedagogical approach adopted in graduation design studio at Cairo University. It is worth mentioning that the studio has been taught since 10 years ago, and the last 3 cycles have been documented and analyzed in this paper based on creative versus critical thinking attributes acquired by the students. The methodology adopted in this paper is a qualitative methodology in analyzing the outcomes of each cycle and the process the students adopted to reach the outcomes, and through the framework of narrative storytelling, and then creating a cross-reading between the 3 cycles to explain more the outcomes of the 3 visions of teaching and learning of this studio. The methodology of teaching analyzed in this paper depends on outside-in design to create unique public spaces through the materialization of a narrative which is developed by the students after layers of research, and the main aim is to translate the narrative into keywords and then express those keywords in terms of the outer form and the inner spatial experience. The originality of the paper lies in the analysis of the studio process and products between creative and critical thinking, and how this approach helped in fragmenting modes of perception in the studied cycles. Based on previous readings and literature review, the design studio creates a simulation for real practices in architecture, and it blends different knowledge acquired by students from other disciplines during their journey of architecture academia. While specifically the storytelling approach helps tutors to deliver the required knowledge in a more experience transfer-based way, and also it helps the students express their ideas and their imagination through exchanging roles between the students and the tutors, and this methodology helps to place the students in a real-life mimicking experience. The conducted framework of the narrative storytelling approach in design studios is based on linking critical and creative thinking. The narrative storytelling, with its details of evaluating the experience, creating the characters, placing the settings, the genre, expressing the climax and ending, all this lies in the realm of creative thinking, while the critical thinking approaches usually adopted and experienced in problem solving in design is related to the climate awareness, material science, contextual knowledge, heritage values, and technology. Thus, the main challenge of this studio was to present architectural knowledge in the intermediate problem solving approach between the narrative storytelling and the critical thinking approach. The materials and methods in this research rely on the graduation project outcomes of the design studio at Cairo University, as we mentioned before, and we have chosen samples of 10 students from the first 2 cycles and 20 students from the third cycle. The qualitative critical approach highlights the degree of success or weakness in implementing the narrative in interdisciplinary mode to reach an architectural outcome, while it is worth mentioning that the students usually join this studio based on their own will and choice, and they are aware of the process somehow. However, usually their expectations are varying, and that's what we take into account in the qualitative scoring approach. In the first cycle, the theme was media architecture, and the 10 samples are expressed in this table. First, we go through the research of defining what media architecture is and how this relates to the specific context chosen, and how they select and narrate their vision of the project, or what the piece of architectural intervention they want to add in this location is. So we go through discussions of form following experience, and following the narrative piece they write, which is abstracted into keywords related to the function, to the program, to the users, to the genre, and then in the process of form generation, the narrative is transferred into an architectural experience based on the inside out expression they aim to deliver. And the samples usually show here how the narrative is expressed in keywords, and then how it is transformed into experiential modes using physical models, and the final outcomes based on the selected typology and the intervention they materialize in their architectural design studio cycle. As shown here, one of the examples of students' outcome in Cycle 1, the project aims to manifest the fluidity and harmony of music while reaching out to the community. Form expressions from musical notes were manifested architecturally, and the keywords integrated in the outer form and inner appearance. From conceptualization of the narrative into an architectural outcome, we go through phases of story finding, storytelling, expanding, processing, and reconstruction, which has been extracted from our theoretical basis. And in this table, we qualitatively assess the 10 cases we analyze through their process of development throughout the design studio to give relative correlational result of how the process is transformed and the degree of success and failure based on how their expression of the narrative is successfully transferred on all levels required in the problem solving. The same process has been implemented in Cycle 2, which was under the theme of reactionary architecture of reason. Also, this table showcases the 10 samples on which the qualitative correlational analysis has been implemented. In the case shown here, the student creates a museum of ancient Egyptian myths through reuniting, connecting, overlapping bonded divisions, and creating experiential spaces mimicking the myth as an abstract understanding. Also here, the table showcases the stages of conceptualizing the narrative into an architectural outcome for the Cycle 2 case study. And the third cycle, under the title or the theme of the Center of Excellence, we wished to expand the vision of the studio into 20 students' outcomes, since this phase was more developed, and the experiential outcomes of the students were better documented and expressed through their outcomes. So here we can show more of the relation between the form and how this affects the internal experience, and related to the context and the outcomes of creating the narrative and translating the narrative into an architectural intervention. The Vortex Materializing and Intergenerational Platform aimed to connect elderly, youth, and children in a collaborative hub through juxtaposition of memories and emergence of the roots and experiences to the community. And here also we can see the results of the qualitative assessment of the 20 case studies. The results of the analysis can be showcased into correlational diagrams for each cycle, and here it was for the phases of the story finding, storytelling, expanding, and processing and reconstruction for the first cycle. And as we can see, it's more of a flattened curve where variations are related to the personal expressions of the students, yet this methodology of teaching in the studio enabled both the tutors and the students to fully comprehend the spatial experience and experiential mode, and to live the narrative through a layer of mutual understanding, which was translated in that the outcomes were varying based on personal skills rather than their ability to reach or not to reach a concrete and solid outcome. Also, the same applied for the second cycle, as can be shown in this diagram. And with the expansion of the sample, we can also see that the maintenance of the success of the phases was deeply expressed, also varying based on very minor personal skills variations between the students themselves. While we aim to also correspond to the correlation between critical thinking and creative thinking as a realm or as a tool to assess the outcomes of narrative design studios, each cycle quantitatively was given the score based on the experience with the students, and whether and based on the jury also results and their knowledge of critical thinking aspects and creative thinking aspects, for example contextual correspondence, the heritage, the material, climatic awareness, and etc. So we have created this correlational diagrams also to express the outcomes and the results of the three cycles. And here we can find the histogram of relevance between the three cycles based on creative thinking problem-solving criteria and critical thinking problem-solving criteria. Finally, we concluded that this approach presented one successful example. Of course, there are other several successful pedagogical approaches and methodologies in design studios. However, this step-by-step approach helps the students to create a self-exploration and to explore their potentials, and also to thoroughly go through an understanding of the theme, the site, and the needs, then it help them also to gradually materialize their ideas and narrative expressions into their understanding of the internal spaces, followed by the outer form, to help in materializing their thoughts and their narrative as if it is a scenery of a film into this architectural intervention. So it manifested their understanding, and it resulted in elaborate and unique results which were not repetitive or regenerated across the different cycles. Also, this exercise expands students' imaginative capacities, and it is usually one of the challenges which we faced was that the students usually needed other supportive disciplines to help them in their mental activity. So this can be one of the recommendations in our study to fill the gap between architectural knowledge and other disciplines to compensate for the visionary role of the architect. At the end, we would like to thank you and to summarize the process of the studio explored in this paper. First, we set the project constraints based on the context, the studies required for the theme and site, and then generation of the idea, followed by exploring and writing and creation of concept statement, then summarization into keywords, concept modeling, then concept testing, and then going through the design development phase. Finally, the presentation of the illustrations through the 2D dimensional drawings and the physical models and the 3-dimensional perspectives and internal space design. Thank you so much, and looking forward to having any questions you would like to present to us. Thank you.